Bet. Pull up the stream.
Yeah, it's probably helpful to read chat, isn't it?
A little bit.
All right, well, we're live. Hi,
Ooh,
everybody.
Look at that.
Yeah, we are.
Anyways, everyone, welcome to the Budcast, where we discuss smart solutions to dumb problems. We discuss dumb problems to smart solutions that not many people have. Here's our disclaimer. We are not experts by any stretch of the imagination. Our opinions are not facts, and we are not experts in any field that we may discuss. With that being said, Ted, Mike, how are we doing?
We living, bud. We living. How are you?
I'm surprised I pulled that off.
Yeah, man. Was that straight from memory? If it's not, tell me
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, that was all memory.
That's pretty good. We haven't done one of these in a very long time, man.
Has been quite a while.
Yeah.
We gotta be pushing at least a year, right?
I don't know. When was the October 15th, 2020? So
Oh, more than a year.
more than a year.
Been a bit.
Jeez.
That's when the official episode 1 posted to YouTube.
All right. Been so long. I'm so
About
old.
a minute.
Oh, man. Well, this is also the first time we've done one of these live, and
That is true. That is true.
when we came up with the Budcast, like, we struggled a lot to decide if we wanted live, if we wanted participation, or if we should just be our own two morons and just chat the two of us.
Yeah. No, I remember when we were struggling to come up with a name for it too, and
Yeah.
I think the Budcast came out of some drunken stupor of an idea.
Oh, I'm 100% sure that was accurate.
More than likely, yes.
To be fair, those are most of our ideas, just drunken stupors.
Well, so we've been doing the Budcast for more than a year now, but Cringe Crew, this is the second anniversary, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
2 years ago, we just took all of our friends and we put a name on it. Haha, suckers. Franchising.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited, man. Like, Cringe Crew's come a really long way. We're doing a whole lot now that we didn't used to be doing. Like, it feels like it is something now. You know, we had...
It's established. It's not something that we came up with one night and we're like, hey guys, we should do this, and then, lose interest 2 months later.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, obviously a whole lot of growth is still possible, you know what I mean? But, like, when we started this, it was just, like, 6 of us that streamed a bunch and we put us all in the same Discord. Like, it wasn't, we weren't grinding out YouTube content or 3 or 4 different podcasts now, and there's so much going on now. It feels like we're doing, like, it feels like something now, which is really cool.
it does. Also, unrelated, so you know how, like, beer bottles are bottled? Is there, like, do they put a substance on the cap when they bottle the beer itself to, like, help ensure the seal, or is it just like a wax seal pressed inside that cap?
I genuinely don't know. I mean, like, when you do the bottling, it comes, like, there's like a bottling agent you put in the, like, you prepare the bottle before the beer goes in it, so that, like, it doesn't like, it tries to stabilize the pressure so that, like, it doesn't explode during shipping. And then, like, it's just there's, like, this, almost like these pliers, right, that hold the cap in place. You stick it on the top of the bottle, you squeeze it together, and it crimps the edges around the top of the bottle.
Okay.
So I would imagine that the seal itself is just a wax seal?
Like, on the inside of the cap, right? Like,
Yeah.
Huh. Because there's, like, a mildly sticky substance on the rim of this beer that I just opened. And I'm thinking it might just be, like, foam over from bottling, now that you mention that, but, like,
It's
I don't
possible.
know. Also, Southern Tier Brewing Company, the Irish Cream Stout.
Ooh. Irish stouts, they're, like, usually pretty dry, and I don't usually get into them, but I try them every time. Never had an Irish cream stout.
That's good.
Yeah.
Also, does chat knows who we are, right?
Yeah, well,
I know chat knows who you are.
I was gonna say, I don't know if Base was around for the last Budcast. Probably not, since it's been for a year. Base on the... Okay, so on stream, the top... This
Right.
side here Well, because it's flipped on there versus on here, and now it's.
Well, I'm
really...
looking at your stream, so it's
Yeah.
top
Okay.
right
So
is me.
this is Mike. Yeah. This one here's Mike, and this one over here is Budward. We had done a series of Budcasts. I think it was like 6 episodes, and then the pilot episode. So it ended up being like 7 episodes.
Yeah,
where
we had the pilot episode, which was Budcast episode 0, which was something we just wanted to try and see if it was something we were going to enjoy. And we enjoyed making it, and it was, for the few people that did watch it, it was well received. So we decided to do like a season, and I think we did 6 episodes, so 7 total.
Yep. We just, like Bud said in his disclaimer, we just talked a whole bunch of smart answers to stupid stuff and a bunch of stupid answers to smart stuff. Like, just to, the thoughts that came to our head, because our conversations were, relatively amusing to us and probably only us. But the 3 people in this call, all 3 of us, like, combined, established Cringe Crew 2 years ago, actually. I think that announcement video was probably like February 2nd or 3rd, 2019.
Like that, yeah.
It was in February.
It was early in the month, because I think we teased it the entire month of January that something was coming. But yeah,
we did.
I figured, excuse me, as a part of the anniversary events to revitalize the Budcast and more stupid problems and smart solutions and all that.
Yeah, well, because I remember the thing that kind of sparked the idea was I would jump into your stream, and I was when we were still playing Overwatch too.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just jump into the chat, and we'd start talking, and someone would ask a question, and then I would go on my typical 20-minute tangent about, orbital space mechanics, hydraulics, stuff that I know at least a little bit about. And then they would ask another question like, oh, why is that the case? I'm like, well, I'm not sure, but I can speculate that it does this because of this. And, well, eventually it would devolve to I don't want to say people were sick of hearing it, but they're like, you should just do a podcast where you can do all of this and, then people can watch it when they want to. I'm like, yeah, sounds like a pretty good idea. And Ted was on board, and here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and it worked out. We had a lot of fun with it.
Mike, you had something?
Yeah, and so when you guys were doing the original run of the Budcast, I don't know what season of the music podcast we were on. If you're new, by the way, the Cringe Crew has 2 podcasts, I guess, technically. This one, which isn't really consistent, and then mine, which also as of late is not very consistent. But I do a music podcast where we pick 3 albums for the week, and we listen to them and talk about them. And due to Steven's very volatile, unpredictable schedule, we are at his mercy as when we do that, and that could be a week, 2 weeks, a whole month. We never know.
Yeah.
And I guested on like what one other episode of the Budcast, and so
yeah,
I think it was the final episode or the episode before the final episode.
Yeah, I think yeah, because we had plans, like we wanted to bring you on for that one. I think Bud and I both got invited to that season of the music podcast. And after we did that, we brought you onto the Budcast, but we wanted our finale to just be a drunken shit show. So I remember Bud and I both being like hilariously fucked up. We barely remembered recording it. And I don't even know if that's the one that got posted or if we just kind of ended beforehand. Because I remember...
No, I think you said, do it, no balls, post it anyways, and we did. If I'm remembering correctly, because I wasn't terribly happy with the last episode.
I remember we had a bunch of concerns. Like, both of us are like, yeah, it's okay, but like, it was just us being drunk and more. I genuinely don't remember if that got posted.
No,
I know we recorded it.
I'm not sure. And you know what? I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Yeah. I would go back and watch, but maybe I'll skip the last one and just let it live forever.
So with that being said,
what is your shout out command?
My shout out command?
Yeah.
Is !SO and then a space and then the channel you're trying to shout out.
Gotcha.
No at, because that just breaks it. Turns out. How was I supposed to know that?
Well, yeah, if you put the ad in, the link doesn't work. It just plugs what you type in into the link.
But
yeah.
Anyways, so that now that anyone's here and anyone that will watch this is kind of caught up with what the Budcast is, how it came to be, there's at least one topic that I was interested in discussing, and that was the Steam Deck. I don't know a whole lot about it. Ted knows more than I do. Mike, what do you know about the Steam Deck right now?
So, as someone who pre-ordered one, I'm very excited for it. I've seen a few teardown videos. I've seen like specs and stuff. From what I've gathered, this thing runs really well, and it looks
Wait,
like
wait.
Valve.
They're doing teardown videos already, like so
Mhm.
more than just like Linus Tech Tips has their hand on like one of them.
Yeah, they sent
Yeah,
out
so
a handful for teardowns and hardware specs. I think they're scheduling their media releases as to what these companies, the places they're sending it to, are allowed to review. So they started with hardware, so people were doing teardown videos, but they weren't allowed to go over the software or how anything ran. It was just like a week or two ago that people started doing like game testing and software and all that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it looks like Valve has some kind of system in place for developers to test their games and get them Steam Deck verified.
Boop.
I'm
Optimized,
not
perhaps?
sure. I'm not sure what the criteria for this is, but I think having certain anti-cheat software can cause compatibility issues, from what I've seen.
Interesting. So then, what is the like? How does it like? What's the build like? What are the controllers like? Can you hook up external like mouse and keyboard to it, or like?
So I don't remember the ports that they said were on it, but I know that they said that it's compatible with Bluetooth. So at the very least, you could hook up a controller or a set of headphones to it, via Bluetooth. But the one thing that Linus raved about most, which stood out to me, was the speakers are apparently like really notably fantastic. He said that he won't be plugging headphones into his unless he's somewhere that he needs to be silent, because the speakers did sound so good for being so small.
That's impressive.
Yeah, like as far as audio stuff for Valve, like the Index, for example, has really good microphone and audio compared to any other VR headset. And it's crazy how Valve, notably not an audio equipment company, is making such high quality stuff as far as audio goes.
Are they making the microphones and like the audio equipment itself, or are they like getting it and just implementing it?
I would assume that they're designing their own stuff as they are with their other hardware.
Yeah, as they're making like their own equipment, I would imagine that like in order to keep licensing and copyrights and trademarks and all that like in place, I would imagine that most of it has to be designed themselves. If you're going to design the hardware, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to buy hardware from other places and just implement it into your own. I would imagine that makes it difficult to sell or to legally sell.
I suppose that does make sense, but it's you do buy some components and put them in, like you're not going to make your own resistors. So I just wonder where purchasing components stops and making your own starts.
So
hey, a scam train.
So one of the detriments of doing this live is that I didn't turn off text to speech.
Oh, I mean, I can't hear it.
Well, no, so as Skay resubbed there, I just got, hey, yo, oh, just in my ear, just over and over and over again.
An enhancement.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for the resub. I'm going to do all of my thanking and stuff at the end just to not interrupt the flow of the podcast, but Skay, thank you for the resub. Conley, thank you for the resub. Major and Stallman, thank you guys for the bits.
Yes, but with that being
also,
said, if you do have something that you would, like to inquire about or something constructive to add to the discussion, definitely throw it in chat. We are reading chat. We'll more than likely comment on it.
But yeah, going back to the controller on this thing, and I'm glad I have this on hand as a comparison. So the controls for the Steam Deck seem to be similar to the Steam controller, which I think I'm the only person on the planet that loves this thing, or loved this thing.
I tried it. I couldn't. I just couldn't use it.
This is a good controller. Would I pick this over, say, an Xbox One controller? Probably not. But the thing I like about this is it's customizable for every game you're playing. Community configure, like you can configure this to be whatever the fuck you want. And there's community configurations when you're setting this up that you can pick from, and there's a voting system so you can see which ones are good or not. But it looks like for the Steam Deck, it's still going to have the touch things, which is nice for mouse.
Touch things work. Are those just like trackpads? Like
yeah,
basically.
So there's trackpads and that kind of thing, and it's going to have gyro controls for like more precision aiming if you're into that.
Yeah,
I don't care what anyone says. Gyro controls are fucking fantastic.
The really cool part about this controller is that well, the Steam Deck, not necessarily the controller, is that like they're adding full community support. So as people like create Steam mods for games, they can also make mods for your hardware system now that you can make the controls do different things. You can recustomize all of your buttons, but also that like you can make the one that they were mentioning was like for Forza was one of the games that they were allowed to game test recently, where you can use the joystick to turn, but one of the trackpads that's also on it to like drift controls, right? Where you can customize your buttons to do two different things, even though theoretically they should be interchangeable with each other. That like you can customize this whole deck, and even the Xbox Series whatever now and the PS5s that are supposed to be like beyond next generation consoles are like they don't have these kinds of customizability. Like the fact that they can take a PC, shove it down to the size of a Nintendo Switch, and then give you all of these customization options for such limited buttons and controls is awesome to me. Like that's super exciting.
Yeah, no, because like I really like the Nintendo Switch and what it brought to the table in terms of like its portability, its functionality. Like its gyro controls are fantastic. Like that made playing Breath of the Wild so much fun. Like you weren't using the joystick to, jaggedly aim a bow across the screen and you overshoot your target. You have to, joystick flick to try to get your target to line up. It's like, course adjustment joystick and then fine adjustment gyro control. So like that, the fact that it has gyro control actually has me quite a bit excited for that. Because I can only imagine what kind of games will A, be developed around that idea, and B, will enhance other games. I wonder.
Yeah, and I think the benefit that this one has over the Switch specifically is that, like, the Switch, you're limited to Nintendo games. Like, the target for the Steam Deck was you can play everything in your Steam library, and if other companies also, like, integrate it to the Steam Deck, you can even play non-Steam games.
Basically PC too.
It's a handheld PC for $600.
It's PC too.
Yeah, like, just... It's incredible the way that like they're putting so much technology into such a small space and getting the performance that you're seeing so far.
So, being that it's supposed to like play all these games, do you think that there will be games specifically designed for it? Kind of like like VR games are designed with the idea of VR. Do you think there will be games designed specifically for the idea of the Steam Deck?
I'm guessing that it'll be more like they'll create games with its ability, like the ability to do that in mind. Like so for example, take Phasmophobia for example, right? You can play that game just mouse and keyboard, 2D monitor and play Phas, right? But they also have a VR option that like, hey, we kept in mind that Steam has a VR option, so we've designed this game twice essentially so that like people can play it in two different formats. My guess is that you're going to see more than that. I think like I was saying, the benefit of the Steam Deck being able to play your whole Steam library is that like you can just play your games designed for PC. If they have controller support, well, now you can play it on your Steam Deck. You don't need to make games just for the Steam Deck that you only buy it for this one machine when you can sell to two markets, the handheld gamers and the PC gamers, like in one, rather than just the handheld gamers.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. All right.
Yeah, the more I keep watching on it, the more I get excited, and like I feel like I haven't heard a whole lot of bad things, other than the standard, don't pre-order things, you don't know what's going to happen, or they haven't released their full
2042. Dude, the amount of memes that came out with that were like, hold, don't pre-order.
Man,
we're hilarious.
I don't know how we haven't learned. Don't give them money before you get the product. I really like. There's a spoof game that's on Steam. I played it a couple of weeks ago with Conley, and it's literally just a $1 on Steam ripoff of Battlefield 2042 with the shittiest physics, the shittiest it's just awful. That. It's so terrible, but somehow like for $1, it feels like hilarious amounts of fun. Where Battlefield, you're paying $60 at a minimum to get an under-designed game that there were so many promises for. Like, why are we pre-ordering that when there are literally $1 knockoff options that feel better to play than $60 games? Like, the pre-ordering just feels so stupid, and people have gotten hosed so many times. I don't understand why anyone is still putting money into a pre-order game.
the only games that I pre-order anymore are Nintendo games.
I mean, yeah, I guess Nintendo, you can kind of trust their quality, right? But like, even Call of Duty, right? Like, you can trust Call of Duty to be almost the same every single year, right? Like, minor differences. There's different, companies and set in different time periods or whatever. Like, but largely you're buying a multiplayer shooter with team deathmatch and domination every fucking year. And like, even this year, I've seen so many people just give up on Call of Duty because Vanguard was so bad. Like, why are we still even giving them $60? You can still get hosed with a bad game. Stop giving them money before you know what it's like.
Yeah, but we can say that, but people are still going to pre-order it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Kind of like what was happening to YouTube recently. Well, not too recently. A handful of months ago, it was, these parents would just start up like YouTube for kids and just leave it on autoplay all day.
Mm-hmm.
And you got these content creators that are, you can't even call them content creators. It's just dumb stuff. And they're, people are watching it and they're getting paid to make it. So, similarly, they released a new Call of Duty. People are going to pre-order it no matter what.
Yeah, I just don't know how we haven't learned at this point. Like, I did just, we have. I don't know. Like, even I was excited for Dying Light 2. I mean, that had the option to get pre-ordered like almost a year ago at this point. But like, yeah. It's been a week since release, a week and a half now. I think it came out last week on Friday, and like, there's already tens of thousands of Steam reviews of people saying how good it was or how bad it was or what they liked or didn't like or whatever. Like,
I heard it was really successful.
Day of launch, there were a lot of people that were complaining it was mixed reviews on its Friday release, but by Saturday, I mean, it's overwhelmingly positive now. At least the last time I checked earlier this week. But
wow,
I like, even then, like, I had 10,000 people's opinions on how well the game worked. There are a million streamers on Twitch playing it because it's brand new, that you can see how well it's functioning and how smooth it is or whatever. That like,
yeah.
I don't need to pay $60 before I see anything to know how realistic those are.
Yeah, like, if you're gonna wait a year for the game, you should at least wait 2, 3, 4, maybe a week before you buy it. Because you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna get the reviews. Like, if you waited a year, what's a week?
Well, I mean, the big one, I think we talked about this on one of the last podcasts, was Cyberpunk.
Oh my god.
That game got promised for a year, but people had pre-ordered it, a year and a half before it released. They pushed back the release date so many times, and then it still came out bad because people were just too excited, and then everybody's like, why does this game suck so bad? The reasons for all of that can be, debated.
Yeah, I mean, look at No Man's... Similar thing happened in No Man's Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Although, not completely similar, but No Man's Sky was promising a lot of things that it wanted to do, but didn't deliver on. Which I guess they've delivered on now, and No Man's Sky is actually a pretty decent game, but...
Oh yeah, Mike's camera is pretty as hell.
My camera is crisp.
It is.
Mine's
pretty as
mine's
hell.
alright.
Logitech C920 is good camera.
I've got the... Oh, I hadn't seen... Let me check my camera real quick. Which one is this? I don't know.
Giving everybody in chat fucking vertigo. Good lord. Oh, man.
I think I have the same one. C920S?
Yeah, that one.
That sounds familiar. That's the one I've got. Take us through warp. Nah! Oh, mine's got a fancy little cover, see?
Oh, mine does not.
Mine does! Although I did 3D print it, so...
Oh, so it doesn't come with a cover. You made yourself a cover.
Yes, I did. No, I love my 3D printer, but I gotta get a new one. Mine's broken. And bad. And old. I need a new filament. It's all dried and cracked and... Dried and cracked. Bad.
I wonder if it's dried or cracked or bad.
Well, I can assume that it's bad, but I don't know if it's dried or cracked, but it might be dried or cracked.
Yeah?
Drugs bad, okay?
Drugs are bad, okay?
Drugs are bad. So what else was on that list of things?
We mentioned earlier, you were talking about that SpaceX rocket issue.
Yeah. So let me pull up an article on it. SpaceX hydraulic fluid failure? So basically, there's these. I want to say it was the Falcon 9. Okay, so there's. If you ever watch one of these, I think it's a solid fuel booster that returns to Earth and lands out in the ocean. If you watch one of those, they have basically a giant manhole cover equivalent of like a giant grate made of titanium. And a fun fact that I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the largest man-made titanium forged object. Forged, or it's billet material that's been milled. It's made of titanium really fucking big. And what it does is they open up these giant grates and they act as a drag for the rocket. And what that does is it puts the position of drag behind the center of mass of the object. So if my beer is this, the rocket coming down, your center of mass, well, it's right here. And your center of drag is not controlled. It's going to be anywhere. I mean, they obviously know where it is, but you want your center of drag to be behind your center of mass. What that will allow it to do is if your drag's back here and your center of mass is here, it's going to keep it in a downward motion. Whereas if I'm not going to flip my beer, I'd spill it everywhere. That would suck. But if your coefficient of, or if your position of drag is somewhere else, it's going to try to align the drag behind your center of mass. So if your drag is down here and your center of mass is here, the whole beer is going to flip upside down and now you're in a tumble and it's uncontrolled. So the idea is that those giant fins fly out on the side and create controlled drag, just like the fin on a dart that you're throwing at a dartboard. And I guess one of those failed to deploy, which caused a failure in landing. Because it's not equal drag, so the drag, while it was behind, it wasn't centered, and it caused problems, and it always will. And I think the article I was reading, and the thing that my friend was telling me about, was it was a hydraulic fluid failure because they ran out of hydraulic fluid. Because it's an open hydraulic system. An open hydraulic system is confusing to me because it's like, so what's the difference? I looked it up. An open hydraulic system doesn't have a reservoir. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with hydraulics, your typical system is going to have an actuator, which is like your hydraulic cylinder or a motor. Which, also another fun fact, FedEx trucks don't use, they have an engine, but it's not like a gasoline engine driving a transmission. It's actually just driving the power module, which is your pump for the hydraulic system, and their drivetrains are actually hydraulic motors. It's horribly inefficient, and I couldn't tell you why they do it, but I think it's something to do with takeoff power, because you can build an accumulator, which is a giant canister filled with gas, with a giant gas balloon inside. As the pressure of a hydraulic system rises, it basically acts as a battery. You fill it up with high-pressure hydraulic fluid, and as the pressure of the system goes down, the balloon will expand and maintain the pressure of the system, which we'll get back to because that's in the open system. It has to be, pretty sure. But yeah, so I think it has something to do with torque conversion, so you have faster takeoff for FedEx trucks or something like that, but it's only 60% efficient or something like that. But so yeah. So it was really confusing to me. It's like, how does a hydraulic system run out of fluid? So I did a little bit of digging, and you have to get rid of the heat from a hydraulic system. That's a given. You're operating fluid under an extremely high pressure, it's gonna rise in temperature. That's a given. And you have to do something with that heat. You can't just get rid of it. And so typically, your hydraulic fluid, after it goes through the motor or the cylinder and is hot, returns to tank through a filter, and that tank has specific heat calculations that I've done. They're actually not hard, they're just specific, to dissipate an amount of heat from the hydraulic fluid so that your system can continue running without melting your pump, or unnecessarily raising the pressure of the system, which would also be bad. So if you don't have a reservoir in an open system, well, you have to do something with that hot oil, and you just eject it. You just get rid of it. It's gone. It just goes away. I guess there's a temperature-sensitive filter that will take hot hydraulic fluid and just kind of out the side. So, well, if you don't have a reservoir and you're getting rid of hydraulic fluid, how do you expect to keep a hydraulic system running, especially in a spacecraft? So that was where I was confused. So I did a little bit more digging, and, well, back to the accumulators. the only way I think you could feasibly maintain that is with an accumulator. What that's going to do is, again, it's a giant canister, quite literally, like an air tank on a firefighter. Very similar concept, except for the air is like a very light air, like hydrogen or helium. Probably helium because hydrogen's explosive.
Explosions, who cares?
Explosive! I love explosive! Anyways, tannerite is a lot of fun, by the way. I destroyed a dryer with some tannerite. Oh my god, that was fun. That was way back when, too.
That's the most boring thing I've ever heard. Just like, here's my opinions on different explosives.
Tannerite's fun! It is! And it's actually quite safe, considering it's an explosive, but I digress. So that balloon inside the accumulator is going to compress as the pressure of the system is charged. Like, you're charging your accumulator, the high pressure oil flows in and then compresses the balloon, and now you've got an accumulator that's at your pressure of your system. Then as you eject this hot hydraulic fluid, your accumulator will force and act as your reservoir and force oil back into the system, using that balloon at the diaphragm of the helium balloon or whatever is in there, as your pressure equalizer, so that you can maintain pressure in your system. And I guess the major malfunction is they must have sized an accumulator wrong, or didn't have the correct calculations for how much oil they'd be dumping in operation. But so they ran out of hydraulic oil, one of the fins didn't deploy, boom, crash.
It surprises me first that, like, there's so much money in Tesla, SpaceX, whatever the hell. Like,
oh my god, yes.
There's so much money behind it. And this isn't the first time one of their rockets has malfunctioned, crashed, whatever, right? Like, I would like to think that there would be a better system for them learning what needs to happen.
There is, but there isn't, because you can do everything right, and it'll still go wrong. Like, you can simulate everything, and then when you experience the hazards of the environment, there's always going to be something that you're not ready for. And it seems like SpaceX has a lot of failures, and they do. But I think the problem with that observation is that we're not looking at other ones either. I want to say it wasn't a Russian spacecraft. It was actually really recent. Like a few days ago. Spacecraft failure to deploy. Yeah, the Astra rocket mission launches, fails to deploy NASA satellites, and it just exploded in flight. It was unmanned, so no one obviously was killed or anything. But there's other failures that happen. They don't get publicized nearly as heavily as SpaceX does, because SpaceX has such a more, I would assume, a much heavier hand in social media and, telling everyone, like, hey, this is what we're doing. So when they fail, everyone knows about it, but when others fail, no one knows about it. I think that might be contributing to the idea that SpaceX has a lot of explosions and failures. It's like, yeah, everyone does. It's just we know about SpaceX's.
I guess that's possible. I think, like, just it feels like, I guess, like, we know the, like, laws of physics in space, right? Or quote unquote the laws of physics, like the physical rules that you have to follow when you're there. Like, we know what it takes to leave the atmosphere. I mean, we were doing it as early as the 60s, right? Like, yeah. And it feels strange to me that, like, not having a working hydraulic system, which are used, like, routinely in day-to-day life. I mean, your FedEx truck delivers your Amazon packages every day. It uses it on the daily. And it feels weird that that's not something that they can... Like, these kinds of issues are the ones that are happening, right? If there's... Well,
sorry, go ahead.
If there's some, like... if they didn't account properly for a temperature or a pressure change, and then something didn't open because, metal expands or contracts or whatever, and something gets stuck, like, you know what? Okay, now we're learning, right? But, like, for a hydraulic system to be bad because the whole thing just feels kind of strange. And we will get to those points. Promise.
Catching up on chat.
Yeah. Okay, if we're gonna transition to chat, I'm not familiar with him killing 15 monkeys in the name of science fiction, but
never heard of that.
but that-
so
Oh, right. He wants to do the whole neural implant thing,
Mhm.
and I was reading this yesterday. I guess he's testing them on monkeys, and 15 of the monkeys that he was testing them on died because of the implants.
Okay. If that's the case, I'm terrified of the whole neural implant thing because that just feels like a Black Mirror episode. Like I wish I had
Absolutely,
something
yeah.
smarter to say about it, but just like, hey, we can put technology in your brain that makes you see shit, think shit, hear shit is terrifying. As far as dystopian sci-fi future that you mentioned there, El, I think like technology advances for a reason, right? And like, you know, we're no longer like fighting each other with rocks and sticks to, you know, build a better fire or have a better cave. You know what I mean? Like technology advances for a reason, but I also think that I guess like my perspective is split in half. On the first, like we should, if we have the capability to do it, we should try it once, not because it's good, but because we can learn something if we do it. The other part is like we kind of have to know what technology is good for us or what we need, right? Like I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but like I know that there's probably technology that's going to allow me to drink gasoline straight out of the nozzle. But is it good for us?
You can do that right now, but only once.
I'm with you that like a neural link, like implanting a chip in your brain, right, is probably not good for humanity. But to know the technologies of like what we can put in the brain to fix certain like brain cancers or people with schizophrenia who have visions and things like that, like if there's some sort of technological advance that we can make, I'm not saying we should put chips in everyone's head so they can listen to Spotify without headphones, but I am saying that like the things that we could learn from developing such a thing could potentially be useful. Yeah, I don't need to see a Big Mac ad in my eyes every 35 seconds as I walk around the street. Like
I hate ads so much. Like, let me live my life. Like that fucking smart TV over there. I swear to God. Like I turned it on and I was trying to launch my NES on channel fucking 3. Channel 3. That's all I needed to do. But no, it's like, oh, you wanted the home screen. Oh, you accidentally clicked on YouTube. Here's an ad on your TV that you bought with your own money. Like, too bad. What's the fucking, like, I don't wanna. Anyway, sorry, I just need to get that out of my system. It pisses me off.
So side tangent about ads, and this absolutely terrifies me. I saw, I guess, some kind of plans for an ad on your phone that would use your camera to track your eyeballs to make sure that you are actively looking at the ad. And the idea of that terrifies the fuck out of me.
I mean,
now it's no longer like you missed the X button. Now you're going to the App Store. You know, it's like you didn't watch the ad. You don't get to look at this until you watch my ad.
Yeah, there's like that's gonna bring me to a capitalism argument that like I definitely don't want to get into because I'll say a lot of things very angrily.
I would appreciate it if we didn't for the Budcast.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna go there, but like I will say that there's so much money in advertising, so much money that like it would feel like a win for the business of advertising to know that people have to look at it. Yeah, Haley, I don't know how far behind you are. It's not like super far, I would guess, like 30 to 40 seconds probably for you with your Wi-Fi.
Thank you, Haley. Yes, I hate ads with a burning passion. Like, stay out of my life. This is my personal life. This is my personal space. I don't want to see an ad for your super deluxe underwear because I was talking about how I need to get a new pair. Like, I don't care. Like, no.
Hey, as far as the purpose of the Neuralink, like to go back to that, I recognize that's not why he's doing it, but the things that you can learn from it being done could potentially someday be valuable.
Well, exactly. Look at the cochlear implant.
Mm-hmm.
Like a cochlear implant isn't like interfacing with your brain, sure, but it's interfacing with the nerves in your ear that transmit sound to your brain. And that gives people who have severe hearing loss that are quite literally deaf. As long as their cochlear, I think it's called the cochlear nerve.
Mm-hmm.
As long as that's intact, we can give them their hearing back. And that's not something you just come up with. Experiencing or experimenting with and developing Neuralink technology, while it might not necessarily lead directly to, I'm hooking up the Master Chief's power armor to my brainstem, kind of cool, you might be able to give someone back their vision. Like if someone has a bad eye, you can give them a bionic eye that interfaces with the nerves in their eye so that their brain can now see again. Just like a cochlear implant. Like that's huge.
Right. And like you were mentioning there with the cochlear implants, like also those the glasses that have been recently developed to like give people color vision who are colorblind, right? That like the technology for those started with television screens and how we can add more colors to the TV, right? Like we've improved the quality of people's lives because we're developing a different TV with more colors. Like taking the research that's happening, even if those research like outlets aren't necessarily like flawless, right? So if we're staying on Elon Musk, right? He had this plan that he wanted to create this subway system of tunnels underneath Los Angeles to help people with public transportation so that we didn't need to rely on buses or trolleys or things above ground. While he was doing that, part of the logistical error from it was, what do we do with all of this dirt? So he designed this brick made out of compacted dirt. So he was fixing multiple problems at once. He was improving public transportation, and he was also taking the dirt, which was, like a side, a side effect for all intents and purposes of this. Oh, rip Bud's camera.
Oop.
Okay.
Sorry, no,
there we go.
my camera was getting really choppy. I wanted to fix that.
All good.
Probably because of my screaming. Who knows?
But taking that and then also giving bricks so that like construction projects can become cheaper. That like you could make housing more affordable because it was it wasn't like clay bricks. It was now dirt bricks, and it was an essentially infinite resource to do things like creating homes. I think that while that, because of the earthquakes in Los Angeles, right, like are going to prevent underground travel in these giant tunnels, like the things that came out of doing that research have allowed like improvements in other areas. And it's not to say that like, hey, if we design this Neuralink, everybody's going to have one. Everybody's going to get Spotify in their brains 24 hours a day. You get it implanted at birth. But the things that we can learn about other things or how to like technologically advance problems with the brain could be infinitely valuable. I think that there are better ways to go about it than, killing animals or, endangering people while these kinds of things are in development. But like, it's not to say that the research shouldn't ever be done because like it seems bad now.
Yeah, I agree. You have sacrifices need to be made for human advancement. And I know how that sounds. It sounds really bad, really bad, There was a joke going around, and as much as it's a joke, I hate how much truth there is to it. It's still bad, but if you have a problem, throw human suffering at it until the problem solves itself. Look at the pyramids. I mean, it's a crass example, sure, but I mean, what? I guess it brings up ethics. Like, where do you draw the line to when you should or shouldn't be testing on certain animals, or should you or shouldn't you, pursue this because it's going to cause X, Y, and Z? I think that becomes an ethics issue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like to take this a slightly different place, while people were still learning about COVID, and there was the issue with people taking the horse dewormer ivermectin like as a COVID cure, right? Like, there is some research that just like isn't being done by credible people, isn't like necessarily valid because of how it gets done, but it can give you an important jumping board. Even if you don't trust Elon Musk to be that guy, I'm not even saying that you should, because I think he's kind of a crackpot. But like, if he's giving somebody who is intelligent and reputable and like smart enough to make it happen, like it could give somebody a jumping board to do something that's genuinely groundbreaking and important.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with science, everything is a theory, and you learn from people's mistakes to generate and create new technology, to make more mistakes, to learn from those. Kind of like the whole thing about the rocket ships exploding. Like, there's just things you can't test for without experimenting. Now that, the hydraulic fluid system failed, what can we learn from that to redesign a more reliable, safer, and practical system? You can't have progress without failure, and you need to fail in order to learn. It's just, how are you failing, and what are you doing to learn from it?
Well, I mean, like what you're explaining there about pharmaceutical companies is a problem with capitalism, not a problem with the research or the basis of it. Like we said earlier, we're not going to get into capitalism discussions here, but like at the end of the day, if you're still learning something, it's still progress, right? There's always time for things to move forward in the future. The polio vaccine used to only be accessible to rich people too, and now it's a staple to get into elementary school because it's basically free. Continuing to do research, time continuing to evolve, and the things that you could potentially learn from such research can still be very important.
Yeah. Mike, you've been quiet for a minute. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I don't really have like a lot of strong opinions about this stuff. I guess like all the dystopian shit is kind of scary to some degree, sure.
I mean, humans as a whole hate change, so I mean,
yeah.
That's not helping.
I guess I haven't really done much like research into this stuff, so I don't really have many opinions about it.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know a whole lot. Most of what I come up with is speculation. Yeah. And again, for anyone who is joining us now and you missed the disclaimer in the beginning, let me reiterate. We are not experts. Our opinions are not facts. We don't claim to know anything. This is all speculation. It's all opinions. Take what we say with a grain of salt. Please. Anyways, I think that's an important distinction to make.
Yeah, I think I try to be hopeful about things like this rather than just it's a Black Mirror episode and chalk it up,
Mm-hmm. Let me check something real quick. Oh God, where is it? Where's the thing with the stuff?
It's there with the other things and the other stuff.
Thank you. It was next to the thing, the combobulator.
Got it.
Of course.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Rip, bud.
Wrong button.
Oh, all right.
Oh! Hey, I found it!
Okay. Yeah, you found a different button too.
Uh-oh. Stream, please. There we go.
Polar Knights, it 100% is the perfect evolution of beard growth. Budward has magnificent beard.
It's all right. I mean, it's all right. I trimmed it I actually cut 2 inches off the bottom the other day, so not that you can really tell.
But anyway, what thing were you looking for, bud?
It was, I think it was about, oh God, I lost it.
Oh man.
Oh hey, but I do remember when we were talking about Smarter Every Day launching baseballs through things. That was fun.
That. I also remember
that is one of our Budcast episodes. If you get on the YouTubes,
as
you can go way back.
Yeah, as follow up to that, if you didn't have something you were about to bring up.
No, yeah, hit me.
So I don't know if you guys have ever watched the YouTube channel How Ridiculous. It's 3 Australian dudes and they just drop stuff onto other stuff to break stuff.
Isn't it a weather tower?
I think so. It's just like it's so ridiculously just stupid, and I love it because it's perfectly dumb. You can turn it on for 20 minutes and it's just let's drop this dart onto a bullseye board from 165 meters off a dam. Like it's just so stupid, but it's perfect.
Yeah, they do a good job with it.
So Smarter Every Day and How Ridiculous teamed up and they engineered this basically a helicopter, right? Like it's essentially like a motor that would be on a helicopter, but bigger, faster, stronger, and the helicopter definitely can't take off. But then they designed the propellers, rather than being helicopter propellers, to just be giant aluminum tubes. So they were like, through all of their technology, they were basically like pressing a button in an office somewhere. The button, the baseball comes out, hits a piston, comes up, is perfectly timed to hit this motorized propeller on this helicopter to hit a baseball as far as we are physically capable of hitting a ball. I have never been more entertained in my whole entire life, bud.
I haven't seen this, have I?
This was like 2 months ago. They designed a basically helicopter to hit baseballs as far as we were physically capable of hitting a baseball.
Yo.
I'll link that in the description when this gets uploaded to YouTube so you can see their video, but
okay, because I've seen I've seen the 1,000-mile-an-hour baseball through the chest cavity of a dummy. Like,
yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah,
how far can a helicopter hit a baseball?
Yeah. Yeah. And the technology behind it was really cool. They show you a whole lot of the processes about timing the baseball and like how the piston system works versus the release of the piston in terms of where the bat is, or the propeller bat is at, like when the ball is going to get hit as the piston bumps the...
Yeah, okay. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty neat because it was like they specifically brought in the same team as the one that we talked about on the previous Budcast to help design this helicopter of baseball bats.
So like, did they design the propeller, the prop? I'm gonna call it the bat. Did they design that specifically, or did they just make it baseball bat shaped? Do you remember? I
think in the first one or the How Ridiculous one.
How ridiculous with the helicopter.
I'm fairly sure they mentioned that it was for aerodynamics to like make sure that the bat gets around at a speed that matches what the motor is capable of. But it was close to matching it to the shape of a bat, but it was obviously much thicker to, account for the fact that it's spinning ridiculously fast and you'd have to pinpoint precision it if it was
integrity as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was making me think, I wonder if you could redesign the prop, the baseball bat in this case, to be more aerodynamic. I mean, but you really can't get much more aerodynamic than a sphere, or a cylinder, or a sphere, by the way.
And I also think, like, part of the hitting of a baseball, forcing it to change directions, is the ball, like, warping around the barrel of the bat, right? So, like, a rounded shape...
That's what allows it to recoil.
So the rounded
deformation of the ball.
Right, the rounded shape would allow for the most recoil because, like, even hitting it with like a flat, like, cricket bat, for example, like, the ball can only disform itself so far to spring off of it. Like, the rounded shape would, in theory, be better than a flat side. I couldn't imagine that you'd be able to do much better than a barrel shape.
Yeah, because I think, again, I'm not sure, but, like, I'm pretty confident that the distance or the force at which the ball bounces off of the bat is based on the deformation of the ball. So if you were to change the surface in which it contacts to be narrower to increase your pressure, because force is equal to pressure times area, if you were to decrease the area at which is being applied your pressure, your force is going to skyrocket. So, I wonder how narrow you could make the striking surface of the bat to be before you either A, cut the ball in half, or B, damage the surface. Like, I wonder if you were to use an oval, like the pointy ends of an oval instead of the round surface of a bat, like a cylinder, if you'd get more recoil or not.
That'd be interesting. Stallman also asks here about a cone, and what I don't know if that was in terms. Yeah, I don't know when he was asking as far as like if it was an aerodynamic shape or as far as making contact with a baseball. But
so I think it probably is about aerodynamics. So the problem with we're going to assume aerodynamics. If not, correct me. But I'm assuming you mean the aerodynamics of a cone because it's got that sharp point. Yeah, aerodynamics. Okay, so it's got that sharp point at the front of your. Now that my beer's empty, so your sharp point is here. The air is coming in and flowing, and yeah, it's incredibly efficient because that point splits the air effortlessly. But now you've got to worry about the backside. You've got this void here, and the air needs to come around and come and taper off to the end. You've got this void here, so what's going to happen is it's going to form an air pocket right here, a turbulent air pocket that quite literally swirls if you ever put it like in a fog machine or something, and your air is going to carry off of that turbulent airflow, and turbulent is not good. Well, turbulent is good, depends on what you're trying. Trying for aerodynamic efficiency, turbulence is bad. Looking for, thermal transfer rate, turbulence is really, really good. So, theoretically, if you were to take a cone like this and then take basically another beer bottle on the other side, duct tape them together, that would be an incredibly aerodynamic feature. But the problem is now you've got all these sharp points. Sharp points are bad because a sharp point means, if your cone is here, you got a sharp point that comes up. Your air comes up and now it needs to be redirected down the backside because you can't. The problem with this is you're creating vacuum. And if you put vacuum behind an object that's trying to go forward, the vacuum is trying to pull it backwards. You're going to not go very fast, very far. So what you need to do is you need to allow your air to flow through that area that would be generating the vacuum so that you don't have any more drag force working against the bottle. So your drag force is equivalent to the vacuum force that's applying itself to the backside where you are creating a void. Which is why, if you take a big sheet of plywood and you try to fan something, it moves really, really slow. You take a knife in your kitchen and you can hear it cutting the air in your apartment or your house, wherever you happen to be. You can hear it cutting the air, but you're still generating vacuum. Just your surface area isn't nearly as much. So you're not generating nearly as much vacuum, if you will. So you can't have sharp corners on an aerodynamic object because you'll generate these turbulent vacuums. Assuming that I'm saying, again, I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm just speculating. But that would be my assumption in regards to, your cone for aerodynamics. So ultimately, your cone ends up becoming an oval.
Okay. What about then putting the cones in the same orientation as a baseball bat to swing it, right? Like either holding the pointed edge or the flat edge and swinging it horizontally rather than going from the top of the cone down.
So your baseball would be striking the side of the cone like this?
Yeah. If you were to swing that like towards me, right? Where use the neck of the bottle as the like hinge, right?
And so the fat bottom would be swinging out.
Right. Would that be an aerodynamic shape on a cone? Because theoretically because of the direction of motion, the flat edge of the cone wouldn't necessarily be making that same vacuum, correct? It's still a rounded shape that swings through, and the air could theoretically roll around the rounded edge.
I think you're right, and I think it would be aerodynamic, yes. Aside from structural integrity, because you're fixating all of your force on a very, very tiny point. That's gonna bend, it's gonna break. I don't care what material you use. So we're gonna assume infinite strength, no friction, no mechanical friction, air friction maybe. You still have that sharp edge. While it won't generate nearly as much, the air is still gonna, assuming a perfect rotation, you're still gonna have a sharp point where air is coming off the backside of this sharp point, and it's gonna want to loop around the back. But again, it's gonna be heavily minimized because you do have the round front of the cylinder that's allowing air to come up and over and around to the back to help alleviate that. I would assume that if you took a cone and rounded off the end, basically cut it in, put a fillet on the sharp edge to help allow air to flow around, I think it could be rather aerodynamic, yeah. I think that would. But then it comes back in, at that point, just use a cylinder.
Right. Cylinder makes more sense there.
Yeah.
Stallman, no, bats, like wooden baseball bats actually break because of the point of contact. Where, like, you'll never watch a bat break if the ball hits perfectly off of the meat of the barrel. The way, like, the structural integrity of wood, the way that the grain flows, where it has its strength, its weaknesses, where you can apply contact or not apply contact, like cause the wood to shatter. When you watch broken bats, it's usually because it hits either too close into towards the hands or out towards the back end of the barrel, where it's now hitting weaker points of the wood that cause it to collapse. Like the structure itself no longer.
Yeah, and actually the reason that the structure fails, I'm quite positive, is because of the harmonic wavelength that is imparted on the bat called shock. You know, if you hit really, really far up, you know, choked up on the handle and you hit right here, your hands are going to fucking hurt, dude. I don't care who you are. You are absorbing all of that shock. Whereas if you hit it in the sweet spot, there's more meat to absorb that shock, and it's, you know, proportional to the length of the bat that the shock wave can, be absorbed by the bat effectively. Again, I'm not totally sure how much that it works, but yeah, no, it's definitely not aerodynamics. It's the structural integrity of the grain and where you hit it. It's definitely not aerodynamics.
Yeah.
Definitely not aerodynamics is what causes that bat. No.
I mean,
if that's the case, just practice swinging your bat should break the bat. I mean,
I guess like if you took a bat and you swung it hard enough around an object that wasn't going to move, you know, like a 40-foot thick steel block. I mean, I guess you could theoretically swing the bat hard enough to break it even on its strong points, but that has more to do with how strong the wood is and not.
I was gonna say that's more of the unstoppable force meets immovable object argument.
Oh, that bat moves. Trust me, it's not an immovable object. That bat moves. It's going to shatter.
The steel brick that you're hitting, immovable. I don't care who you are, man. That ain't happening. Ain't happening nicely, at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you see like aluminum bats or golf clubs very rarely break, is because the way that they're designed, like you're hitting it in the meat where it's designed to make contact that can absorb the shock, and like you're not messing with the structural integrity. It's like you're hitting it where it's supposed to, and the material's strong enough to withstand it. Not to say you can't break an aluminum bat, because I saw that one time, but it did again hit off the handle and a very thin, weak part of the bat.
So, you mentioned golf balls, like golf clubs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall the aerodynamics of a golf ball, like those little dimples that they have on it.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall correctly, the reason that a golf ball is aerodynamic is those little dimples create a pocket of air, like I was talking about on the end, the ass end of a cone. You know, it creates that pocket of air, which happens in pickup trucks too, by the way. So it's not more fuel efficient to drive your tailgate down. Leave your tailgate up, you'll generate a pocket of air, and that pocket of air helps flow the air out and over the truck instead of down and through and create that vacuum. But I think those dimples create those little pockets of turbulent air, and air on air is far more frictionless than air on surface. Has a lot more friction. So I think the aerodynamics of a golf ball are because those little dimples generate basically a sphere of air around the golf ball that allows the other friction air to go up and over and around the air and not the ball. Does that make sense?
I think so. Does that affect the flight path of the ball?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to look into it right now.
Because I would imagine, like, as you hit it, right, it would have more spin than when it lands, more often than not, right? So spinning would help preserve that pocket of air because the dimples are moving faster. It could create its own pocket more realistically, but it doesn't create like a perfect parabola when you hit a golf ball. I mean, it's very much like goes forward and up. It hits its apex and then comes much closer to straight down.
Yeah. Oh. Interesting. Okay, so basically, I've just skimmed this article real quick. The dimples are crucial for aerodynamic properties because they create a turbulent flow that reduces the ball's drag, which is counterintuitive in its nature. Those words don't. Turbulent flow is supposed to be more drag, not less drag. But I think it's because those dimples create that turbulent flow around the ball, allowing other air to pass forward and through it at high velocity.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, but like, it's weird to read that. Which makes me think further, if you were, because like, your driver, is the driver of a golf club flat, like the striking surface?
Mostly flat. Not, I wouldn't say like perfectly flat, but mostly.
Is it, so if it's not flat, I would imagine it has to be convex, right?
Mm-hmm. Very slightly convex, yeah.
Which, yeah, it is slightly convex. Which is allowing a smaller area to strike the surface of the ball, creating a higher pressure, which generates more deformation for that elastic rebound that the ball will undergo, which goes right back into the baseballs. Baseball, so like, you know, a round bat is going to hit a ball further than a flat, like a cricket bat. Because you've got less area striking the ball, creating a higher pressure, which deforms the ball further for the elastic rebound, launching the ball further.
Okay, so I know this from playing baseball, but I don't know why. While we're on, you know, how far you could hit a baseball.
All right, hit me with it.
Would you have any idea why, like, humidity would be better for the carrying distance of the baseball? Like, on a very humid day, that I've always been told playing baseball forever that the ball will travel further on a humid day than on a dry day.
Yeah, I got 3 ideas.
Okay.
I found an article that I guess explains this, or at least for golf. Cold air is more dense, so you lose distance when it's cold. The reason the ball travels further when it's humid is because there's less air resistance.
I was gonna say, I think it would be that like the humidity clogs the pores of the leather, allowing a smoother surface.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
The other would be a density issue, but that would be counterintuitive. It would be, you know, it's a humid day, it's a higher density. You know, you would think unless humidity is directly proportional to your heat index, you know, then, you know, what Mike just said, cold air would be more dense, hot air less dense, you travel further.
It wasn't always hot days. It was humid days. You know, the same temperature but a higher humidity would like the ball theoretically travels further.
I don't know. Aside from what I just mentioned, you know, what Mike mentioned, I don't know. And it probably has something to do with the properties of the ball's surface, if I had to guess. That is what I would go with. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, when, you know, like, especially as I got to like later on in baseball, like you had to worry about the outfield, right? The direction the grass is cut is going to affect which way the ball bounces.
Really?
When you, because of the physics of the act of hitting a baseball, right? If you are a right-handed hitter, right? You stand on the left-hand side of the plate. If you hit the ball towards right field, the ball is going to not fly in a straight path, but it's going to carry towards like the foul line, right?
Coriolis effect, yeah.
Right. So, like, we had to worry about what, like, where the hitter was facing. You had to worry about the direction the grass was cut. You had to worry about, like, if it's humid, like, play on an extra step or two back because it's going to carry further. But I never considered, like, it was just a thing that just, it was told to me. It was assumed to be true, and I never thought about it. But, like, yeah, that was a thing I heard a lot, that on a humid day, the ball will travel further.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, I have no idea. But that does make me think. I mentioned the Coriolis effect. I wonder if that would, if you could manipulate the trajectory of a golf ball based on how high or low you hit it, because it's not, you know, the driver club doesn't have a flat surface. So if you were to strike above the curve, one would be led to believe that you'd put backspin on it. Whereas if you struck above the ball, you'd put forward spin on it. Based on the direction of the spin in regards to the Coriolis effect, you could arc up or arc down your drive. Maybe?
I guess that makes sense. I mean, like, casually knowing golf, right? I mean, the driver's designed that if you have a consistent swing, it's you're looking for carry in the ball. Like, the ball should just go as far as possible. You're not necessarily worried about spinning or bouncing, right? If you're worried about the front spin, back spin, that sort of thing, like that, then you're playing in an iron game and you're worried about the pitch of the clubs and like where in your stance you make contact.
See, I don't know anything about golf, so
So with a driver, right? You have your athletic stance, your feet spread shoulders width apart. The tee, like the golf ball and the tee, should be set on the inside of your front foot, because on a perfectly even swing, the club is just starting to move up from the like apex of the arc. I get like the apex is technically not the right word at the bottom, but of the arc, right? Like it's your club is just starting to move up. I would imagine that it's such a like the convex face of the club would be minute enough that like I guess you're just looking for most distance possible, not necessarily where you're making contact on the driver. I'm no professional golfer, but I would think it's just more consistency and getting the most length out of it rather than worrying about how you're spinning the ball or what kind of path it takes.
Well, yeah, I don't think you'd make much of a difference at risk of throwing your game trying to put spin on the ball. But that's an interesting thought, though. I don't know.
I don't know too. I don't know too.
I know nothing.
It is okay, Mike.
Agreed. What all else did we have on that?
I think it was just like the chip shortage, like
and
not potato chips.
Yeah, well.
Oh, I do want some potato chips.
Potato chips, good.
I'll rummage in the cupboards for some later, maybe.
The thing you from I just went grocery shopping.
Dude, my roommate's fucking awesome, man. Bro, bought me some beer, went shopping. He's over there.
That disembodied true from the other side of the room just it really got me. Yeah, I mean, but logistically, we brought up before, while we were prepping for this the chip shortage that Bud was specifically complaining about, that cars take too many microchips and that's why chips are very hard to find for computer parts and all of that. But like, genuinely, how do we fix the shortage for chips? Like, what exactly is the manufacturing holdup that creates?
Well, actually, I can tell you what the manufacturing holdup is handily.
I'm ready.
Okay, it's actually my job. Quite literally. So, I can't tell much, but I am a coder tech for Corning Glass up in Fairport in their special materials division. And specifically what I do is I take special optics and I deposit a thin film coating onto those optics using a vacuum chamber. So, like, there's some electron beam guns at the bottom of the chamber that will atomize, well, not necessarily atomize, but evaporate material, and that material will travel to the top of the chamber through usually an APS, advanced plasma system deposition, like assisted deposition, and that will apply, we're talking nanometer thin here. Like, I think our thinnest cat file is like 52 nanometers or some shit like that. It's really thin, like, and we'll deposit that onto the optics. And those optics, at least from my chamber, are for LO, laser optics. Those go into machines that create superconductors and semiconductors. And those superconductors and semiconductors go into machines that make microchips. The shortage isn't necessarily on my end of things, but it's that other factories that are manufacturing the semiconductors and the chips themselves were shut down when COVID hit pretty hard. And so now there's this, but manufacturing of computer chips, graphics cards, CPUs, microchips for cars, never stopped though.
Right.
So, that's where a shortage started. And as we continue to develop, specifically car technology is a pretty damning suspect here, because we are putting more and more and more and more computer chips into vehicles every day. Like, an absurd amount, almost. Honestly, though, I mean, look at, electric cars require shitloads of microchips. So, as we develop these new technologies to, take new chips, we're not anywhere near meeting the demand for that. And, crypto is also to blame here. People buying up, graphics cards left and right. we're manufacturing them as quick as we can, but they just get bought up again, so the demand never ceases.
Well, we were talking about too before again in prep that like you mentioned there, Stallman, that everything in a car is a sensor anymore, and like my question at the time had been like how much of that is because of new standards for what vehicles have to have, right? I mean, Bud was mentioning that his truck has a mechanical ABS system, and like that works perfectly fine, right? Like he can still.
Yeah, well,
stop
I
his
didn't
car.
say it worked perfectly fine. But like,
okay,
it has it.
When it was new, the system worked perfectly fine. His truck may be the poor example there, but I mentioned that like I had when I was still working up in Philly that like we had like vans that had like an automatic brake system, where if cruise control was on, I could put my foot on the floor, like motor revving as hard as it possibly could, but the sensors in the front of the vehicle would genuinely not allow me to crash my car. I could start 5 feet away from this wall. If I turned on cruise control and put my foot on the floor, the car would not go forward. It would tell me there was an object too close and I couldn't go forward, right? And so, like, while those things are valuable, like, they're also becoming standards, right? There was never a point in time where Bud's truck, even at brand new, was going to stop itself to prevent you from getting into a collision. Now, it's impossible to take these cars with these automatic brake systems and crash your car. Like, it's impossible to get into a head-on collision. So, I'm like, while these chips
I mean, everything is operating as it should.
Okay, yeah.
I wouldn't say impossible.
Okay, yeah. Assuming everything operates as intended.
Severely reduced chance.
Right. And the, like, chips are being used for things like that, like for your car to have a sensor to know how far in front of you something is, or to activate the brake system when something is that close. Like, yeah, it's going to require these chips, but things like that are becoming standard, you know? Like, you read all the time about like these news stories about what cars or what countries are doing as far as like emissions regulations and how much, like, greenhouse gases your car is allowed to emit, but there's like you don't read about the things that like, hey, the Bud's truck that was designed in 2000 or whatever year it was, like, would like no longer be allowed to be manufactured and sold as brand new because it doesn't have these safety features that would protect you from these things. Like, these chips are not just a luxury item anymore, but there's so many things that are
required.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't need the, in dashboard, like, GPS systems and, hey, the Apple CarPlay that requires its own chip or whatever. Like, sure, some of those things are luxuries, but a lot of these in new cars, you can't eliminate the need for those chips.
Well, and, I just thought of a great example that I learned in my microfabrication class was the deployment of your airbags. Way back when, before we had these micro sensors, it was a giant mechanical system that took up a genuine amount of space. What's up, Mike? Do you have something?
Yeah, just interrupting real quick. I'm gonna go pick up my DoorDash. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Sure.
So, there was a genuine amount of space being used up, and they were expensive, these actuators for your airbags, and they weren't always reliable. And then we developed this, and it's not necessarily a microchip, it's a microsensor. But you require a certain amount of technology, to make that, so you're not making chips with that technology. But, we turned it into this little tiny microsensor that's like, about the size of a dime that sits in the front of your vehicle. It's reliable, it's efficient, it's quick, it's lightweight, it's easy to manufacture. Cheap is the big one, but that's now an absolute standard. You won't find a vehicle made today that has a giant mechanical system to detect a crash to deploy your airbags. It's going to be a microsensor.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff makes sense. But me personally, I don't want to say a minimalist, but I don't need heated seats, cooled seats, a moonroof, a sunroof with auto tinting glass. Like, yeah, a GPS. No, I don't need that. I have an Atlas and I've got a snow brush. Like
I said, I mean, some of these like luxury items, like, will absolutely require chips that aren't necessary. I mean, think about how many things you've watched videos on that Teslas can do, I'm living in my car mode. It is a default function about the ways that it can auto temper. Like, yeah, a lot of them require chips, but like there are some things that just in order to manufacture your car now just become mandatory in new cars.
Yeah, Stallman, to follow up on your statement there, like, yes, the sensor itself is just a sensor, but there is a chip reading the output of that sensor, deploying it to the computer, which is another set of chips that knows how to interpret that data as a crash or not. So, like, even though it's just a sensor, like, there's still a chip integrated to read the data and then transfer that data to the computer that then is made of more chips and...
Yeah, without, like, you could set up a really simple system. Like, without a computer chip, you could have a sensor that turns on a bright red light in your car if something was within 50 feet of your front bumper, right? Which is fantastic, but if the car isn't, like, turning on that red light is...
interpreting that data.
Right. The chip in that system would say, oh shit, the red light's on, this is how we handle that red light coming on. And then they deploy the countermeasures to prevent that from being a crisis, right? Like, you know, if a really crappy example is fucking The Simpsons, Homer Simpson working in the nuclear plant, right? If a red light comes on, consider Homer Simpson the chip. If you don't have a chip, it's just, oh man, there's a flashing light and I don't know what to do. If Homer Simpson is a working...
It's annoying.
Right. If Homer Simpson is an advanced computer chip, like, you know, a well-manufactured chip, then it's, okay, that red light's on, which means I need to pull this lever, press that button, call this person, and then disable this system temporarily. So, like, the sensor doesn't necessarily have a chip, but the response to the sensor absolutely does to make it worth a damn.
Yeah, also, to follow up on your statement there about the safety glass in the Tesla truck being a huge safety hazard, no. Yes, breaking the glass is quick. I can guarantee you that there is some built-in automatic system that forces the door open when detecting a water submersion event that will allow you to escape that vehicle. And if there isn't, that's an oversight. But that's such a unique problem to have that not having the unbreakable glass is going to cause other issues. You know, if you're in a car crash, you know, there's shrapnel everywhere now.
Right.
But
and
if you're in a clash and that's why your front windshield is a tempered laminated glass, so that when it breaks, it doesn't shatter and go into your eyeballs. It breaks into, you know, semi-harmless, tiny little dust particles and stays mostly intact.
Right. And I think too that the purpose of that design was not, like, while I'm sure Bud is right that there is some sort of safety measure in place,
Yeah,
especially in
so.
something that's manufactured like a Tesla is, right? The bigger point is that it's much more realistic for somebody to try and smash your window and get your phone out of the center console than it is for you to drive into a lake.
Yeah.
If you're playing a numbers game, how many windows get broken every single day because somebody needed to escape their submerged underwater car, and how many...
Someone really wanted your radio.
Right. If you're playing a numbers game, theoretically, the unbreakable glass is safer for you on a needs basis than it would be to just have tempered glass as in your standard car.
Yeah, and this brings up, I don't want to get too much into it, but it does bring up a very important point when it comes to making tough decisions. You can do everything in the world to make something right, and there's always going to be something or someone that tells you that there's going to be a situation or a scenario where what you've designed is a hindrance. So you can do 99% good, and there's going to be a 1% bad that comes from that choice. You know, like, you know, you're not able to break your window to get out of your vehicle in the case of a submersion event, but you're going to be benefiting so much more on the forefront of things, you know, in regards to safety and security, that it's something you have to deal with.
Right, and
that's a situation that a lot of people don't like to hear. It's like, hey, we're doing this for the greater good of 85% of this item or this event, and that other 15% are going to be upset or distraught or scared or unsafe. But, you know, it's another one of those almost ethical issues where are you drawing the line on where we can implement this at the risk of this happening?
And the other thing too is that it's a math game, right? I mean, Fight Club is an example. It's constantly on the top of my head because I'm a degenerate, and
I mean, you will also really like Fight Club.
I do. There's a scene in it where the narrator is explaining his job, where his job is to inspect like vehicle failures and decide whether or not the company should do a recall, right? So the simple math equation for that particular instance is like, okay, cost of a lawsuit is A, cost of recalling the cars is B. And so if A is higher than B, then they'll do the recall and fix the parts. If the cost of recalling, repairing, and sending back out or buying replacements for everybody ends up being more expensive than a lawsuit, like, well, then you're going to go through with the lawsuit because the lawsuit's cheaper, right? So in some cases, like, while the decision-making process for what glass to use in your Tesla truck is not necessarily the same as, like, you know, a gas tank that explodes if you breathe at it funny, right? There's something to be said about, like, okay, if this benefits us in most of these situations, even when it doesn't, we're prepared to face those repercussions because we've still made the better choice in X amount percentage of the time, and it's going to be cheaper to deal with these couple of lawsuits than it is to deal with, you know, like making sure that everybody has their option or this or that or the other, right?
Yeah, it all comes down to risk reward. Like, what are you
Mhm.
willing to risk for what kind of rewards you'd be getting out of it, you know?
Stallman,
And to some degree, that does play into the whole like testing on monkeys versus rats kind of a conversation. Not that I necessarily want to get back into it, but you know, to what degree are you willing to sacrifice X, Y, and Z to get, you know, this much benefit from it? But
yeah, I mean, it's
that's
an
obviously
ethical
a
debate.
different
Like,
situation. It's ethical, but
Anyway,
it's
yeah.
similar.
What did I miss?
we started
Um,
talking about the unbreakable glass in the Tesla truck, and you know, the values versus risks of installing it, or, you know, like if you drive your car into a lake and you can't break the glass to, you know, depressurize your car, kind of thing. That's where we ended up. As far as you're okay, Stallman. I'm about to have a fight with you. Okay, you're an American guy asking for more space under the hood. I want you to look at your phone.
that's
I want you to look at your phone and tell me that it doesn't fit in your pocket, or that you need the buttons to be bigger. Right? I need you to look at your keyboard or your computer tower and then tell me that there just needs to be more space. Americans have this fascination with, my trunk needs to be massive, everything else needs to be fucking midget tiny, the smallest it can possibly be, so it stops getting in my way. My car can't fit in a compact spot because it goes too fast. Okay, it's an almost strictly American thing to just, I need more room under the hood to work on my car, but also it needs to be small enough I can fit in my compact spot. It still goes fast. It's still efficient. It's still X, Y, and Z. If you added all of that negative space, right, to, hey, I can reach my hand in here easier to fix the motor that fails in 1 out of every 5,000 cars, right? Like, you're fixing an issue that is, you know, 1 in 5,000 versus, hey, my car is still small enough to fit in a compact spot, gets from A to B.
See, that's why I love my Ford Ranger, man. That thing's tiny. I can park that thing anywhere. It's tiny. It's perfect, except for when it's not.
I mean, so when I was still working my last job, they had me take apart one of the old company computers, because, like, company policy was, if a computer gets out of service, you have to destroy the hard drive so that patient information doesn't get shared, right? The motherboard on that thing was manufactured in 2002, and the flat green board it sat on is literally bigger than my entire desktop computer now.
Yeah, I believe it.
I like, everybody goes, why does my computer have to be like 17 square feet? Make it smaller. Also, I want more space for me to add 18 more hard drives.
Yeah.
So I can comment on this.
Yeah, let's have it.
Well, kind of. So I work in IT, and the main company that we get our equipment from is Dell. And our computers come in 2 form factors. We have micro towers, which I don't know that I have. Imagine it. Imagine it's like the size
Yeah.
of this, maybe a little smaller. Okay.
Right, and they're
Fair.
flat. That's the one that's sitting on my desk at work now. I mean, it looks like a slightly oversized disk drive. They're tiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people see these and they don't realize it's a computer because of how small it is.
Mhm.
And then we also have like some larger size towers that aren't like the size of, say,
Like
you or
half the
I's
desktop,
gaming
like a
gaming
micro
PC.
ATX.
Yeah, they're maybe like half that. Yeah. And so those are the sizes that we're dealing with. What would you say are the sizes that you deal with in your company?
Like, so I mean, now I have one of those micro PCs on my desk that looks like an oversized disk drive. The one that got replaced was probably at this current job was probably about the same size as the tower on my desk, maybe a little wider but shorter. The one at this previous company, it was manufactured in 2002. This thing was a dinosaur. It was massive.
Okay.
But the whole concept of it needs to be smaller, it takes up too much space, but also give me space inside it is absolutely asinine.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, but like semi-related, it's similar to what we were discussing before the podcast, before we went live, was how compact we can get before it becomes unreasonable to operate and work on to repair and fix.
Right.
You want room. You mentioned that you want room under the hood to work on your truck, or your car. But how complex can we make engines before you go from my 2000 Ford Ranger, where I can take a toolbox and a socket set and dismantle the whole thing in the driveway, to where I'd need an automotive, electrical, and a mechanical engineering degree just to even get the the battery out of it.
Right.
You were gonna say something, Mike?
Oh, I guess my whole opinion on it is make things smaller as long as you can keep the functionality and still make it easy to repair. Because I've got massive fucking hands.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And even like working on my computer now, taking out the graphics card and where the placement of the screws are that hold that in, it's such a tight, confined area that it's really hard to try to get screwdrivers in there to start to unscrew that. And if a screw falls in, God help you.
Well, I mean, like, I think, when I was growing up, if you wanted an external hard drive, right? I mean, those things were genuinely the size of a brick to add half a terabyte of space to your computer. Like, it was genuinely a brick. Now you can buy a flash drive that is multiple terabytes large.
Yeah,
right?
Even M.2 that's 2 terabytes. The thing's like what, 3 inches long,
right? And
half
flat.
an inch wide, and flat, and it snaps onto your motherboard. Like, it's not even taking up space that your motherboard isn't already occupying.
Right. Like, if you want your computer to take up less space, if you want to have these advanced parts do more, less size, right? Because I don't want to put a second brick on my desk, right? Like, then, like, okay, you kind of have to settle with the fact that these parts are smaller. If you want Bud to go into your computer and you want to add another M.2 drive, right? Like, the places that those are going to fit are going to be small and tight because you want this smaller thing. I remember when, like, I'm fairly sure it was a Toyota ad, probably back when I was in, like, middle school, that they were saying that the car was the exact same size as the previous year's model, but they had doubled the trunk space. Okay, like, yeah, the people who are buying these cars, the intended market was, suburban soccer moms who need to fit their kids, book bags and their soccer equipment and their groceries in their trunk of their car, but they didn't want their car to be the size of a U-Haul truck, right? Like, so they shrink down the technology in the motor, in the computers, in the brakes, and all of the systems that make the car go. They shrunk those down. They put them in a more compact area so that you, as a user experiencing the car, can have more usability out of it, more trunk space in this example, or more leg room in the back seats. But you kind of have to compromise your ability to get in and deal with the things that are in that compact space when they go wrong. Yes, it sucks you can't stick your hand in to, replace the alternator because you have to pull out 18 different systems to, pull out a system that's this big. But, like, that if you continued to make them that size so that they were easier to work on, you're sacrificing the not portability necessarily, but the how effectively you could fit that thing in your space, right? I mean, a graphics card that like I've got a 1080 Ti in my computer, right? If they were able in 1997, when my family got our home computer, right? If they were able to create that kind of quality in 1997, that graphics card would be the size of my entire goddamn desk. You said
It would be too.
Right. You said, I want to fit it inside a standard computer case, so they bettered the technology to make it small. Well, now you're complaining, my hands don't fit to pull out my graphics card. You sound like an asshole. You want it to be big when you need it to be big. You want it to be small when you want it to be small. It's ridiculous to want both things at the same time and expect them both to work all the time. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. And, with wanting these items to be smaller, well, it requires smaller microchips.
You might need to
Which
reset
means
your...
that
You might need to reset your camera there, bud. I'm getting a timing issue and you're pixely.
Mm-hmm.
How about now?
I just watched you say how about now, so I'm gonna say no.
Oh, son of a bitch.
You know what? Why don't we, bud, how about you, like, we'll all hop out of the call here for a minute. I can put this on an intermission. This gives us a bathroom break. I can refill my beer. We're gonna...
That's a great idea.
Let's take 2 minutes to reset ourselves and come back to it.
All right. Send it, man. Oh man, chat can hear us. It's awful. I hate them.
All right. Honestly, so most of the podcasts were 45 minutes to an hour, if I remember properly. And doing it live and having interaction now, we're almost at 2 hours. All right, you know what, Stomp? I'll get to that on my stream and I'll box you, but we're gonna leave it alone for now. I think the only thing we've got left to cover on this podcast before we wrap this one up, is just talking about Cringe Crew, where we've been, where we want to go, and goals we've got before we, do this whole anniversary thing again next year. I know that I'm fully cognizant of the fact that a lot of the success of Cringe Crew comes from the success of the streamers, because most people are going to roll across a Twitch stream before they roll across a Discord channel, right? I think there are very few people that have rolled upon XQC's Discord before they come across XQC's stream, right? And so one goal for me is broadening the width of the reach of our streams. I know that Bud having found a job and having weird time has limited his ability to stream. I know Mike's had his own issues to, that streaming is not as daily as it used to be. But I also wish that our streams reached more places. I find that a lot of the people who stream here or who participate here reach the same audiences repeatedly. And so I think one goal for me, I don't know about you guys, is to get streams to see different audiences, bring people in from different places, and combine a whole bunch of audiences rather than recycling the same one.
Right. So I guess with the people that are streaming consistently, let's just say Luke, for example. He's playing, mostly kind of old school RPGs, and there's an audience for that too. I've noticed his streams do kind of attract some people that show up, and it's cool that we can get people that are interested in other things. My streams, while they haven't been as often lately, I've been shifting into more rhythm game content, and that's already a really niche thing, and even for each individual game is even an even more niche thing. What I'm trying to do with that, and I can't really speak for Luke with his stuff, but I can at least speak for mine. I just want to show people cool games. I want to get more people interested in the rhythm game community, and that's really all there is to that.
Yeah, and I don't mean to speak for you here, Bud, but I know that when you were last streaming consistently was probably Kingdom Come Deliverance. And there's still a bunch of members that are still in Cringe Crew that participate, in various members' streams here. What's his? I can't think of his name. I can see his face, and I can't. He's yes. Blunt,
I like him.
I was gonna say Blunt still participates in some things in the Discord. He still hops into my stream every once in a while, despite the fact that
he's doing really well with his stream too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool that he was never going to find my stream. He was never going to find Mike's stream, but Bud was playing Kingdom Come, and that was.
I found him. I rated him.
Whatever the case may be, to find more members of the community like that, that wouldn't have found the rest of Cringe Crew otherwise, but still and appreciate and enjoy and support the group. I know that I can say this because I'm streaming almost every day, that I know that a lot of the people who view my streams are going to the streams that I raid, whether they're Cringe Crew members or otherwise, that will instantly support them because that's the kind of community we create here. And I think it would be cool, whether it's adding more streamers or being able with the streamers that we have to bring in more varied audiences who are those kinds of viewers that appreciate the community as much as they appreciate the game that they intended to watch the first time. I think that's a major goal for me, at least for the Cringe Crew for this upcoming year. I also I'm really enjoying putting out video content. I know the Let's Plays are going out. Mike's music podcast is getting uploaded. My podcast with Stallman, the Bond podcast, his first episode is going to be released this week on Thursday. And and we've already got 4 more of them recorded, uploaded, and scheduled for following Thursdays. But being able to put out that video content that hits even more audiences and brings in us like multiple platforms, I think is really cool. And I definitely want to do my part to increase what ends up on YouTube and everything else, through other mediums rather than just streaming, to continue to grow that aspect of Cringe Crew over the next year, is also really important to me. What about you guys? What kind of things are you looking for over the
I
next
just want
year?
to start streaming again, but you gotta find the time and the ambition to do it.
I
Yes,
understand
this
that.
is a really ambitious goal to have, but I think it's still solid nonetheless. I have really been enjoying doing my arcade streams playing Waka, and with my current setup, where you can now finally hear me and the game simultaneously, whereas with my other scuffed setup, it was a little iffy. But I have a better setup now, and so now I can actually interact with chat. And which is really nice. And I really love showing off that game because I love playing that game. And if you're familiar with Games Done Quick, the speedrun marathon that happens
Love
a
Games
couple
Done-
times a
Games Done
year,
Quick.
with the move to being remote instead of being in person at a convention, there have been more and more rhythm game showcases, which is really cool to see. And I think if I had the opportunity to submit a Waka showcase for a future GDQ, that would be incredible. I'd love to do that. But the problem that I'm running into is management at my local round one. So we have a community for our local round one, and we've been trying to get management to allow us to implement capture cards into some of our games because a few other round one locations have them. And I've been doing like tournaments and that kind of thing. And there was literally a Dance Rush showcase, I think last year, that took place at a round one. And so the only thing that's maybe stopping me from doing that is just getting the permission for it, which is completely out of my hands. But if
Sure.
I could ever do it at some point, that'd be great.
Yeah. I don't want it to, I don't want my next statement necessarily to make me sound disingenuous or unappreciative, because genuinely I do appreciate the fact that I can press go live on a Budcast that many people in the audience here today have never witnessed any one of them. And that there's still people here to watch it and to listen as we talk about the properties of a rocket that failed to open because of hydraulic systems. That's the coolest thing in the world to me. I don't mean to sound unappreciative in the slightest. But I know that a lot of our growth comes from all of us, not just the streamers. And when Genesis or when Stallman or when Luke goes live to, hey, I know you guys are here, let's check out the Discord because there's a bunch of cool people and you'll see a bunch of different games, not just what I'm doing right this second. I know that a lot of that comes from us, but a lot of it too comes from you guys. I can't tell you how many people have joined this Discord over the past 2 years because hey, we met up in a game, and if whether it's me playing DBD and somebody joins the Swift and they join the Discord and become an active part, or combining communities or bringing your own streams here, I encourage and beg of all of you that when you guys do have these things, that there are people that would want to or would benefit from being in this community, that bring everybody here. I'm not even saying everybody needs to make CCG their own Discord. Don't do your own things, do our thing.
Yeah.
But if you're playing DBD, for example, you get somebody in your stream that's always looking for somebody to play DBD with, hey, I have a Discord, but also go check out CCG because there's a bunch of people playing over there. There's a bunch of cool people. You can check out videos or this kind of thing. I'm so thankful for those of you that already do it, but it means the world to me that we can continue to get growth because you guys are doing those kinds of things. I'm very, very thankful, and I encourage more of that for the future, because that was our initial goal, was to bring everybody into one place and get everything they're looking for, promote all of our friends to do all of these things.
That's what I'm thinking.
I within this past year, just having met Tank randomly through DBD, I'm now paying him to do my video editing. every single week the stuff that ends up on YouTube. I'm promoting his channel every time one of those gets posted. But like, I'm super thrilled that we can support all of our friends in all of their content creation adventures through this Discord. It's awesome that people keep getting brought in here. It means a lot to me, to all of us, that this continues to grow and help everyone get to where they want to be. I think it's really cool, and I'm excited to see this continue moving forward, because we've definitely done so much more this year than last year, and it feels real. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think despite the fact that 2 of the founding members have been streaming less, we've had like a pretty decent growth this past year, despite that, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love the fact that this group has so many more people in it now than it did last year, despite so many, like, I don't want to say lapses in streaming, because that feels like I'm insulting, but like, I know Luke took a couple of long breaks in there, even as one of the more, I think Luke probably has more streams in a year than I do. There are several times he goes live twice a day. Stallman has taken some breaks here and there, but like, even Stallman streams. Memphis has changed his name, rebranded, started streaming on a different site for YouTube occasionally instead of Twitch, and I think he's maybe done 6 streams this year. And even still, like, he still encourages people to get in here, and like, despite all of the lapses that have yeah, okay, Major, nice. Fight me. I love that TTS cannot be disabled, as I'm. All right, wouldn't be Cringe Crew if it wasn't a little bit scuffed. No, but it's awesome that, like, despite long breaks in streaming from a whole lot of people, myself included, I took a 3-week break at one point this past year. That it's really cool that so many of you guys are bringing people here and continuing to help this thing grow. It means a whole lot, and I encourage and beg and thank you guys for bringing everybody here that you will over the next year and beyond that. It means a ton.
Yeah. With all that being said, if the Budcast is something that, all of you enjoyed to some degree, let us know in the Discord, in a DM or something like that. Let us know. And we'll do another episode if it has enough interest and it's something that we want to do. So
absolutely. And ideas, of course, even man, if we turn it into a clip instead of a full podcast, we can still throw that on YouTube for everybody to enjoy. Like, if there's something you want us to chat about for 35 seconds, like,
you watch all the Budcasts? What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Running the fever, maybe? We appreciate it.
No, very much.
I appreciate it.
It's awesome. Knowing
the
the goals
was my project, and Ted helped me with it, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it's one of my most favorite things we've done on this channel. To be honest,
well, it lets my brain do the thing where I don't have to filter, I don't have to filter what my brain is thinking. Like, I wonder if we can increase the delta V of a golf ball by covering it in oil and striking it against a solid surface of titanium instead of rubber. It's fun.
Yeah, and talking about my own podcast, that started with the way that started is I just wanted to talk about albums that I really liked, because my music library is fucking huge. And then second season, due to personal reasons, we had to find a new host, and I won't get into that. And it's been cool having Conley on. I think he might be here lurking possibly. But
yeah, I think he was at some point.
Talking with Conley and Steven about albums that we either love or think that the other will hate for various reasons it's really cool. It's cool talking about albums and maybe exposing people to music that they wouldn't have discovered otherwise, and that was kind of the goal with that.
Yeah. He is here looking, as it turns out. Yeah, but even that, I mean, even before we fully established Cringe Crew, Mike was talking about, I had this idea in high school for a music podcast because I just want to talk about music. And like, now that there's the platform to do it, man, if that gets 10 views, all of us feel over the top. Like, it's it's a really awesome thing to know that you guys are here watching and participating. And if one person enjoys
Episode 0
it,
of the Budcast got like 60-something views in a week, and I was over the moon.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, we're doing it!
The Bud was still raving about the views from that video, and we had done episode 4. Like,
it was very nice.
The fact that we all get the platform to do the things that we're enjoying that aren't necessarily just Twitch streaming, and that you guys are here for any of it is absolutely fantastic. I can't express appreciation enough.
Yes. I think with that being said, this is a good place to wrap up.
Sounds good to me.
Not that you weren't doing that for the last 10 minutes.
I'm a rambler. It is what it is.
I know you are.
All right. One thing I'm going to get into, and then I'll let Bud do the complete closing, is I mentioned during the stream or the announcements video for the times and stuff that we were giving away merch for specific anniversary events. This event is going to have a random drawing. I'm going to stream it just to make sure that it's fair and equitable, but everybody who's participated in chat today, I've got a star next to your name, next to the total tally of things you've been on my list here. I'm going to raffle it off probably tomorrow on stream, just because that seems more easy for me to get everything on a list. But we're doing a drawing for a random CCG anniversary shirt tomorrow. If you guys are here and in chat and have not participated, I'm going to encourage you to drop a line before we get out of the Budcast.
Sorry, I had to plug in my headset. What?
Oh, I just went over the,
Oh, yeah, okay. Nope, that's fine.
Okay.
I got most of that, so.
All right. Bud, if you want to wrap us up, send us home.
I don't remember if we ever had a specific way to wrap up the Budcast more than like, hey, hope we didn't piss you off and bother you too much. That's what we do. That's how my brain works. Welcome to my reality. If you liked what you saw, let us know in the Discord, in our DMs, just something to give us some sort of, any type of feedback, positive, negative, as long as it's constructive criticism, we're definitely open to hear about it. If you want to see more, let us know. Check out, this is already Ted's stream. I stream every once in a while. Mike also streams. Check us out. Get in the Discord if you're not already there. That's all I've got. I don't ramble like Ted does.
Perfect. Mike, you got anything before we get out of here?
If I may very quickly do some self promotion, I actually plan on doing an arcade stream later today. So check the Twitter to see when I go live for that, and hope to see some of you there.
All right, that's gonna wrap it over the podcast, I think.
Does that command work? What is your command for me in your chat?
I think it's Buddy. Hippie, I got you, dog. Thank you for coming.
Hey, there it is. Found it. Doesn't Mike also have one?
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Either Mike or Xenon, or I don't fucking know.
Might be Xenon.
I'm gonna try every iteration of that. Hold on.
Yeah.
Well, anyways,
I'll shout you guys out. I'm gonna let me hit the intermission button so I can wrap this up for the podcast. We can continue chatting.
Okay.
Works for me.